Did you know that childhood trauma and experiences could be holding you back from managing your type 2 diabetes? In this episode of the Harun Rabbani podcast, we want to go deep and explore the true causes of type 2 diabetes and in fact other chronic and autoimmune diseases. In the modern world, we have this mindset that we have separate organs and systems in our body that work independently of each other. The human body is hugely intricate. Everything is connected to everything else. There is no separation. So this Newtonian mindset that everything's mechanistic doesn't work for the human body. Yes, there are mechanical elements of the human body, but overall, everything works in cooperation and collaboration. When it comes to childhood experiences and particularly childhood trauma, I don't know any single human being who's had it easy, who's had zero trauma in their life. Do you know anyone like that? Of course, the greater the trauma during childhood, the bigger the impact throughout life. However, there's another additional factor to take into consideration. It is the perception of trauma. So, for example, somebody could be growing up in a country where parental smacking is allowed and everybody gets smacked when they're a child. No big deal. You might take another culture, say in England, for example, where you are growing up in a middle-class English family and perhaps there's no violence, but all it takes is a bit of verbal battering or shouting and all of a sudden this person is traumatized. There is no wrong or right. It is a perception of the child during their childhood. So if you are suffering from any kind of chronic disease, lifestyle disease by the way, or autoimmune disease, then this episode is for you. You are at the right place at the right time. If you have a family member, a loved one, someone you are caring for, looking after, and they've had hugely traumatic issues, then this is also the right place at the right time for you as well as them. When we talk about chronic disease, we might be thinking of the physical conditions. Actually, the mental health issues are also strongly correlated with childhood trauma. Now, I've met a number of people who are very strong, very masculine, and they can shrug it off in their own mind. It's in the past, let's forget about it, which isn't actually sometimes a bad thing to do. You cannot dictate your entire life, your daily activities purely based on trauma. You've got to be present in the here and the now. However, sweeping things under the carpet is okay. If it's a bit of dust, you need to clean it up. I'm talking about literal dust and dirt. When it comes to trauma, sweeping under the carpet means suppressing it in your subconscious mind. So it was conscious at one time, now it's below your conscious level, but it's always there. 98% of everything you think, feel, act on, react upon is driven by your subconscious programming. That means 90% of everything that you have done today, all the decisions you've made, you think it's intentional? No. It's driven by your subconscious programming. If that subconscious programming is not serving your highest good, your happiness, your fulfillment, then you are in essence being driven by an old script, one that does not serve you, one that will never make you happy. In this episode, let's explore one particular way of identifying some of the programs, the consequences of those programs, and some of the ways that you can actually start working through your old shadows, old traumas. You may have heard of this old term that if you take a child from the age of 0 up to the age of 7 and you watch how it thinks, it behaves, how it reacts, how it handles emotional issues, you can actually almost predict their lifestyle. Well, that's actually very, very accurate. I believe that close to 99% of everything that you're ever going to do is in this blueprint that's created in the first 0 to 7 years of your life. 0 being from conception. For example, if the mother has been going through trauma while she was pregnant, those hormones will affect the child. So from 0 through to 7 impact the rest of your life. Of course, young people go through stuff up to the age of 18, which also impacts the rest of their life. What kind of areas are impacted? Well, first of all, when it comes to diabetes, of course, the relationship you have with your physical body, the relationship you have with your own mind, with significant members of your family and people who come close to you. I'm talking about romantic partners. the relationship you have with work, with money, with society at large, and very importantly, the relationship you have with your spirit, your spirituality, or your religion. According to the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, there's a test called the Adverse Childhood Experience Test, which indicates to what degree a young person has been traumatized. This is something you take, of course, during your adult life, and I'm sure you can do it while you're a younger person as well. When you look at that particular study or that quiz that you do, you can start correlating some of the issues that happen with childhood into your adulthood. Now, this is a general test. It's not extremely detailed, so anybody can use it. And if you do need to work through your traumas, by the way, before we even move forward, please seek the help of a qualified mental health expert, a qualified psychologist, a qualified therapist who is somebody that you can trust, somebody you can work with to work through your stuff. Do not try to do the heavy duty trauma work on your own. So the first thing I want you to do after you watch this video is type into Google ACE test, ACE test or ACE questionnaire. There's a whole range of websites you can find, and it's a 10-part questionnaire. Simply answer the questions and then follow the instructions, and it will give you a test score. And that test score will indicate to what degree you've been traumatized and to what degree it is affecting you in your life today. The test indicates 3 adverse types of childhood experiences, which are abuse, neglect, and family dysfunction. Abuse refers to physical, emotional, or sexual abuse. Neglect refers to physical or emotional. And household dysfunction refers to mental illness, incarceration, meaning imprisonment, substance abuse, domestic violence meted upon the mother, and divorce. Given the fact that, for example, in the United Kingdom, the average divorce rate recently was seen to be 42%, and the United States 50% on average, sometimes higher, sometimes it's lower. Given that already, you can see that will have an impact into the health and happiness of the child going into adulthood. In the United States, 6.5 million families have one member that they know of their family who is currently incarcerated. Clearly, that will have an impact on the family's mental and physical and emotional health. In England and Wales, an estimated 310,000 individuals have a family member affected by the prison system. So the consequences of adverse childhood experiences include, first of all, behavioral issues such as physical inactivity, smoking, substance abuse, alcoholism, and absenteeism from work. Physical and mental health consequences of childhood abuse include severe obesity, diabetes, depression, suicide attempts, and STDs. They also include heart attacks, cancer, strokes, COPD, and even broken bones. By knowing your ACE results, there are 3 areas that you can start addressing. First, very importantly, is stress management, emotional regulation, and self-care behaviors. Understanding ACEs helps you and your healthcare practitioner to develop effective treatment methods and support strategies. You can develop personalized treatment plans and address both physical and emotional aspects of type 2 diabetes or any other chronic or autoimmune disease. Here are some of the ways childhood adverse events affect diabetes management. First of all, you're going to have increased levels of stress. Chronic stress, which is one of the big drivers of type 2 diabetes, leads to the release of stress hormones such as cortisol. When you have a release of cortisol, you have an increase in blood sugar levels. Now, the fact that you've got diabetes means you're having trouble managing blood sugar levels. So the last thing you need is another spike in blood sugar levels simply because you are unable to handle stress. As a result, it makes it even more difficult to manage diabetes. The traumas can lead to emotional dysfunction. That means difficulty in managing emotions, coping with issues that come to you on a day-by-day basis, and so you end up developing habits such as eating disorders that only exacerbate your health condition. Very often, these coping mechanisms, which are broken, only worsen the diabetes or the obesity. Having adverse childhood events can also lead to poor self-care activity or behavior. The childhood issues leads to a lower self-worth or self-esteem. And so as a result, you give yourself less priority. Here's what I've found working with people with diabetes. They are very, very caring people about everybody else but themselves. And so they invest so much excess amount of time to everybody else that they have little time for themselves. The question is it caring for themselves, or is it because their self-esteem has been lowered so much they're trying to avoid addressing their own issues? So this leads to the kind of behavior which ends up with the diabetic sabotaging their health or just avoiding doing the things they need to do to actually get their health back. For example, quite a few of my diabetes clients come to me with issues like eating very late at night, snacking frequently. Here's the problem. An hour before you go to sleep, as a result of melatonin, sleep hormone production, your pancreas starts going to sleep. That means you will eat something, let's say it's a sugary snack, you will have a blood sugar spike, but nothing to manage the blood sugar spike. So you are going to bed in a self-destructive form because you're eating so late. But that comes as a result of childhood issues. At this point, you might say, well, hold on, I've never been physically abused. My parents were loving. Remember, I said to you, it's all about perception. You do not need to come from a physically abusive, tormented childhood. It could be literally the perception of lack of attention, lack of support, lack of spending time with you. It could be a whole host of things. This is why there's a lot of people in the Western world who are struggling to figure out why they are suffering diabetes when life seemed to have been very good while they're young. And also another thing to consider, many people would have experienced trauma, but then what they do is they forget about it. It's so deep down in the subconscious, they don't even think about it. It's not on their radar any longer. It's still hidden under the carpet, but it just does not come to mind at all. So what are the most powerful ways for you to be able to deal with your childhood traumas? The first type is actually just going to therapy. One of the best forms of therapy is CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, which works through your traumas. Having been through traumas myself and having turned to so many different therapists for help, in the end I ended up developing my own system as well called the THT method. And we go to what I call the origin story of your traumas, and we transform that and change your life altogether. By transforming that, it makes it easier to transform your physical activities, your emotional activities, your relationships, and much, much more. In a future episode, I will be talking about the THT method. The next thing to do is practicing self-care. What kind of self-care? Well, first of all, self-acceptance. It's okay for you to be who you are as you are for now. It's okay. And if you can be okay with who you are as you are on a day-by-day basis, in fact a minute-by-minute basis, then already you're halfway there to healing some of your biggest issues. The next thing is self-compassion. So we frequently beat ourselves up for saying things wrong, doing things wrong. Wrong is obviously very often a perception. I'm not talking about laws. I'm talking about our perception of our activities, our behaviors, our reactions, our responses. We judge ourselves so often. We judge others. Think about it this way. An indication of you judging yourself a lot is your judgmentalism towards others. Are you constantly nitpicking on how others are thinking and behaving? Maybe you're not vocalizing it, but it's in your head. That's an indication of you doing that to yourself. We project onto the world so much of who we are onto other people, not realizing actually I need to be kind to myself in words, kind to myself in activities, kind to myself by being kind to others. Another way to self-care is stress management. So think about the things that cause you stress in your life. One of the big things for most people in this society is an overactive mind. So that might be social media, television, just thinking too much. So how about on a day-by-day basis, taking 10-20 minutes out to just be silent, just to breathe. It's called meditation, by the way. How about that? If you do have a spiritual practice, so I'm a Muslim, go and do your prayers. You will find so much solace in your prayers and connection to spirit. People with diabetes and most chronic diseases also breathe incorrectly. Learn to breathe correctly. Learn to slow down your breathing, inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your nose. Breathing correctly will help reduce your anxiety and help relax your body far better. And in fact, certain breathing techniques will even help you to lose weight. You and I are descended from hundreds and thousands of years of ancestors who had bodies that were physically active, and they were healthier because they were physically active. In this day and age, we are like couch potatoes to such a degree that people actually have to go to the gym just to get some physical activity done. If you got type 2 diabetes, you need to be active every single day, whether it be from walking or physical exercise in a gym or going swimming, it doesn't matter, but get moving. That is a great form of stress release. And then finally, learn that there is great power in self-love. Self-nurturing, self-caring is so important. Think about the thoughts that go in your head. Are you somebody who is beating yourself up constantly? Or are you somebody who's actually gentle with yourself? Imagine a 3-year-old girl or boy version of you. How would you be treating that child? What kind of language would you be using? What kind of stress will you be putting it under? So then how you treat that child, start treating yourself in that way. And then finally, practice emotional resilience techniques, stress management techniques, ways of letting go. We do cover this in this channel, and I will be covering all of these topics in forthcoming weeks and months. Just to summarize, adverse childhood experiences, traumas, have a significant impact on adult life. One of the big reasons I work with type 2 diabetes is I know for most people diabetes is reversible. It's not a genetic condition for most, nor is it a lifetime of imprisonment in a condition that is outside of your control. I also go into schools to deliver motivational talks for young adults. Here's why I do that. Because if you can help young people think and behave differently out of trauma rather than within trauma, if you can help them to believe that they are good enough, then you will take away one disease of the mind that most adults have got, and that disease is I am not enough. Your childhood traumas and experiences do not have to define you. Most people allow that to happen. Your childhood experiences does not mean you cannot change. Yes, you can. It means changing your thinking and your behavior one step at a time. It means the training of your mind, of your body to live a healthier lifestyle, both in mind, body, and in spirit. If you are interested in learning more about developing habits that give you health freedom, then you might want to click on my link in the description, and I talk more about what you can do to train yourself to get health freedom back. Do me a big favor, in the comments below, write down what's one thing you can do to improve your self-care, management of your mind, your heart, your body, and your soul. Right below, and I will see you next time.